Conflict with Iran. Iranian officials say the country has breached its limit on enriched uranium, violating the conditions of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. This after the U.S. imposed new sanctions after Iran shot down an unmanned U.S. drone last month. President Trump sat down with Fox News Channel's Tucker Carlson and spoke about the conflict with Iran.
I built up a lot of great capital. And if something should happen, we're in a position to do far worse by not doing it. But hopefully we don't have to do anything. But you can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And you can't let certain other countries have nuclear weapons. Too devastating. So they're having a lot of difficulty in their country right now. And hopefully at some point they'll come back and they'll say, we're going to make a deal. We'll see what happens.
Joining me now, retired four-star general, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, and Fox News senior strategic analyst, General Jack Keane. General, always a pleasure to see you. This pronouncement, as the Wall Street Journal editorial page calls it, loud announcement of a nuclear breakout is intended to scare the world into coaxing President Trump to back off the sanctions pressure. Instead, Europe should be pushing with us on sanctions against Iran. What happens here?
Well, clearly, that's what the Iranians are up to here, Hagan, is that they clearly want the Europeans in particular to provide economic relief for them because they're in a desperate situation given the comprehensive nature of these sanctions and the toll it's taken on their economy, which, to sum it up in one word, has crippled it. Clearly, the Iranians and the provocations that they've done recently are all about the same thing, to put pressure on the United States. But frankly, this administration is not going to give in to that. And I think the president has demonstrated to the Europeans and to our allies that he's willing to restrain the use of military force, even when the Iranians are using it, as they did in sabotaging the tankers and also in shooting down an American drone. We have yet to shoot back at them. And I think here it's time for the Europeans to step up and join the administration in imposing sanctions and also politically and economically isolating Iran.
Well, the fact that Iran so quickly is now enriching uranium above that 300 kilogram, the 300 kilograms of uranium, and the fact that the deal basically just handed money to Iran that was then used to finance essentially terrorism throughout the region, whether it was Hamas, Hezbollah, and the rebels in Yemen. And then also it did nothing about the, as the journal points out, terror promotion in the Middle East, but also its ballistic missile program. So is this just more evidence that the president was right to pull out of the deal?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the deal was designed to temporarily delay Iran getting a nuclear weapon, and at the end of it, it gave them unlimited restrictions in terms of uranium enrichment, centrifuges, and the like. And it flushed them with $130 billion of money, which is what they're using to direct and fund the Syria and Yemen civil wars, rockets and missiles to Hamas and Hezbollah, and obviously all the other worldwide terrorism activities that they have. One more thing about what the Iranians are doing right now. I don't believe we need to overreact to this. They have gone above the threshold, clearly, but not significantly. It's designed to intimidate the Europeans that this could get worse. I think what we need to do is send a clear message to Iran once again. We are not going to tolerate you getting to weapons-grade capability in terms of uranium enrichment. That'll become a red line for Israel, to be sure, and should be one for us as well. Nonetheless, we don't need to overreact to this either. A warning should suffice, and hopefully will motivate the Europeans to change the path that they're on.
A warning, are more sanctions possible? Would there be a way we could put even greater economic pressure on Iran? Again, getting rid of the waivers on buying oil from Iran for these other nations, that was kind of a critical step in ratcheting up the pressure.
I think the pressure is pretty significant right now. I mean, to get into the fine details, you'd have to be a staffer in the Treasury Department looking closely at what manufacturing goods have not been sanctioned, et cetera. But I think the maximum pressure campaign this administration is applying certainly has taken its toll, and it moved Iran in a direction into a place it's never been before.
Turning to North Korea, General, President Trump this past weekend became the first sitting U.S. president to cross the demilitarized zone into North Korea. Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un agreeing to restart denuclearization talks after their previous Vietnam summit ended in no deal. Your thoughts on the president taking this meeting, but where do we go from here?
Yeah, and that's a great question. What happened after the Hanoi summit and Kim Jong-un went home empty-handed because he thought he would get sanction relief? That was their goal. It failed. He dismissed his negotiating team, as we know, and tragically he also reportedly killed the chief negotiator. Where are we now? Everything stalled after Hanoi. The North Koreans would not negotiate with us because they were in a face-saving, having been humiliated by the Trump team walking out on them. And I think what the president has tried to do is just restart the talks. His staff couldn't do it. Secretary Pompeo couldn't do it. So I think what you saw there, the symbolism was all about, OK, I'll do it. I'll see if I can get Kim Jong-un back to the negotiating table. That worked. At least the commitment is to working level staff groups to get together. I think from the United States perspective, what we will want to see from the North Koreans is something truly tangible in terms of a step towards disarmament of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, something that has not happened to date. And I think trust is something that's very important to the North Koreans. I believe the administration recognizes that. And I also believe that they're changing here. In other words, we wanted them to give us everything, and then we would provide sanction relief. I think the administration's in a place now where it's going to be a step-by-step process. They're going to give us something, and we'll have to provide something to them in return for that and move together, hopefully, towards denuclearization, which is a long way off, in my judgment, whether we're ever going to get there or not. But at least we've got to try.
Secretary of State Pompeo said North Korea and the United States don't even agree on what denuclearization is, that they're not at step one, but we still don't have an agreement on the definition of that. I want to turn to the 4th of July celebration on the National Mall, General. President Trump offering a preview of that celebration in D.C. yesterday. Just take a listen.
We're going to have a great 4th of July in Washington, D.C. It'll be like no other. It'll be special, and I hope a lot of people come, and it's going to be about this country, and it's a salute to America. And I'm going to be here, and I'm going to say a few words, and we're going to have planes going overhead, the best fighter jets in the world, and other planes, too. And we're going to have some tanks stationed outside. Got to be pretty careful with the tanks because the roads have a tendency not to like to carry heavy tanks, so we have to put them in certain areas. But we have some incredible equipment, military equipment on display, brand new, and we're very proud of it.
The planned use of those military tanks, of course, they'll be stationary, sparking some criticism from Democratic lawmakers, saying the cost is too high for the Parks Service to handle. The weight of the tanks could pose a danger to the monuments and roads. General, what do you make of this celebration?
I think we have a president who wants to celebrate the birthday of the United States. And certainly he's entitled to do that. He wants to add a little bit more to the celebration of what traditionally has been here in Washington, D.C. It's something that's celebrated in most towns across America, and the president wants to celebrate it in the capital town of America. And my hat's off to him for doing it. And, you know, I've been on military bases all my life, and we normally, around holidays like this and Veterans Day, we let the people come in and touch all of our equipment. We put it on display, let them talk to our soldiers, let them touch and feel the things that they hear because they live around it all of their lives. And yeah, I think it's a positive thing. And I don't know why we're wringing our hands about celebrating America. It makes no sense to me to be criticizing something like this.
Because that's what people do if it's the president's idea. They gnash their teeth and wring their hands and furrow their brows and basically, I call it the rehearsed sneers that they practice in their bathroom, General. It's just, that's what we've become.
Yeah, maybe so, unfortunately. But anyway, the American people around this town will have a great opportunity to go out and enjoy America and see some of the things that are on display to help protect them.
And a happy 4th if I don't see you before then, General
Same
Jack
to you.
Keane. Pleasure, sir, always.